being in the place of being caregiver, chef, um, just having to deal a lot, doing all the work in our households right now. And so we encourage you to take care of yourselves, make space for yourself. And we also really just invite you to step into this place of taking time for yourself as we are here together in this little container, kind of suspended from our our lives, our businesses, and then also just want to be able to share just that many of our businesses are challenged in this moment. And so we hope that this series can be an inspiration for pivoting for the next step, and just an opportunity to create and manifest courage for what you want to create going forward. At this moment, I want to really again just share and invite the co-founders to jump in. Um, as we've created this Native Business Retreat series, it really has been our hope that it can service emerging and established Native women entrepreneurs who want to grow their business or start their business, and expand their network with others in the community. Through this series, like, we want to acknowledge that this is obviously, as we're feeling, a challenging and unprecedented time. But we also want to be able to integrate tools for self-care alongside just practical business knowledge for everyone navigating these times, but also like visioning forward and creating a future where Native women entrepreneurs and matriarchal systems are really the governing models for the world we want to create going forward. We believe that Native women are the backbones of our nations, and that this is really a opportunity for us to expand beyond the physical limitations of having an in-person summit that we normally have. And so over these 6 virtual retreat dates, our hope is that we can move toward making further connections with folks from all across Turtle Island and beyond. And so we also want to give a special thanks and then extend our gratitude to the New Mexico State Indian Affairs Department for their support of this series and Native Women Lead. We're so fortunate to be in communication relationship with the Indian Affairs Department and have the support of Indigenous representation at the state level, and the ways that that helps service and provide care for our communities.
This is Vanessa. Thank you, Jacqueline, and thank you everyone for joining. It's such a weird experience to do this in this way, and so I just appreciate folks who are completely Zoom exhausted. I just wanted to say that, like, we are in deep gratitude for your participation, your advice, your co-leading with us, because all of what we're doing comes from what we hear from you and what we learn from you. And I just want to double down on that, because none of this happens without your expertise, your knowledge, and your wisdom. And we hope that we can be a good, not just mirror, but a good place in which we can help. Our work is about helping and coming alongside you, before what's happening today, but and beyond. And I think as Native women entrepreneurs and leaders that we all are, we just believe in you and the future that you're going to create. So thank you.
Hi, everybody. This is Steph Poston. I just want to say I'm just super excited watching the chats and all the representation. It really makes my heart filled. And we're just super excited about what's about to be unveiled, and just getting a great jump start with Jenn Harper. I'm just so excited. I have no words, and we're just glad you are here and that you've given us the gift of your time. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Just want to echo all of that gratitude, and want to invite just an amazing like rock star of a woman who has really been a supporter of Native women lead on the ground in so many ways, and personally has helped in making this like virtual world a reality, and that's Jen Lujan. And I am just super grateful for her sisterhood, her support, and just badassery because she holds it down. We're super excited to like welcome her onto the team again, this time in the capacity as the really Native Women Lead program and event coordinator. I might have just given you a new title, but we're super excited to have you here. I'm handing it over to Jen to just provide some more context for our time together too.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jacqueline. And thank you, co-founders, for the opportunities that you have given me. I'm really grateful to be here. So thank you, Jacqueline, for that amazing, heartfelt introduction. It really means a lot to me because this organization has really benefited my life for the better. So thank you. And so with that, just to give y'all a little background on these amazing ladies, these co-founders of Native Women Lead. In May of 2017, right here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a group of Native American businesswomen created a panel discussion on developing the space for positive Native women mentorship for the Women's Economic Forum, which is a global movement to elevate women in economic empowerment and leadership. The event unfortunately resulted in 0 attendance, and the Native women panelists just were the only participants. So what started as a disappointing lack of interest to share their unique perspectives was instead a transformational opportunity to talk honestly with their peers on what it means to be a leader in business and the obstacles we face as American, Indian, and Alaskan Native women. The team started with 8 to bring forth this movement that we now know as Native Women Lead. The remaining co-founders now continue to build this momentum, currently launching these virtual retreats, the Matriarch Loan Fund, and the Together Grant, just to name a few. These 6 amazing women these 8 amazing women knew they wanted NWL to continue to be a co-created movement, including this community that's with us tonight, and really has been the major driver for all that NWL is able to become. So with that, thank you to our community, and thank you to the organizing team co-founders, who are Kim Gleason of Navajo Nation. She is the executive director of Two Worlds, a Native theater and performing arts company. Jamie Gloshay of Navajo, White Mountain Apache, and Kiowa Nations, who is a project manager at Roan Horse Consulting. Alicia Ortego of Santa Clara and Pojoaque Pueblos, and she is the executive director of the All Pueblo Council of Governors. Stephanie Poston of the Pueblo of Sandia, who is the owner of Poston and Associates. Vanessa Roanhorse of Navajo Nation, who is the CEO of Roan Horse Consulting. Jacqueline Russell of Navajo Nation, and she is the president of Grown Up Navajo. So thank you, ladies, for creating safe spaces of inclusion and community where we can gather, uplift, and empower one another. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to you, Jacqueline.
So again, like we wanted this time to be one where you as really just like CEO of your dreams and like visions are able to take a breath. And so for this moment right now, what I would love for you to do is like wherever you're at, and if you're able to, would like for you to come and take a breath with us. So kind of get comfortable. You want to put your feet on the floor if you can. And if you want to stand up, you can stand up. Otherwise, you're welcome to just have a seat. And I don't know about you, but my life, especially right now, is running on coffee. And I um, really try to keep that dependency very healthy. But some of you may like to drink your coffee in a French press. And so, what we're going to do, a French press allows flavors to come forward, allows us to kind of settle in. But what we're going to do is just French press ourselves and our energy to really align. And so, all that is going to take is just come to a relaxed kind of vertical, whatever feels comfortable to you. Again, feet planted on the floor. And you're going to start with your hand. Let's get back a little bit. You're going to start with your hand up here. So a French press has a little handle, and you can put the other one on your heart. And so what you're going to do is just, as you take a deep breath in, you're going to exhale and just bring that French press down in front of you. Just aligned with your vertebrae, aligned with your core, and just centering your values, centering yourself in this moment together, knowing that this interweb of sisterhood is enveloping you in this moment from afar. If you want to do it one more time, make sure all those grounds kind of settle. You can inhale at the top and then exhale and just bring all of yourself back. All of the day, all the frenetic paces, let them all settle and fall away. And as you're sitting, just take one more breath in, breathing in the gratitude for your wellness, the breath in your lungs, just the movement and the blood flowing through your body. And when you're ready, you can come back. Your eyes are closed. Maybe open them a little bit lower instead of looking straight out, looking at the ground first with a softer gaze, and then coming back into our moment together. Now I'd like to welcome Jamie for introducing our guest of honor and sharing a little bit more about our time together. So Jamie Brochet.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So we are so thrilled to welcome Jenn Harper today. An award-winning social entrepreneur, Jenn Harper is the founder and CEO of Cheekbone Beauty Cosmetics Incorporated. Cheekbone Beauty is a digitally native direct-to-consumer brand that is helping Indigenous youth see themselves in a beauty brand while using the concept of a circular economy in the brand's ethos and in developing their latest line of products, creating a new segment in the beauty industry, sustainable, socially conscious beauty. Jenn Harper has been making a name for herself in the beauty industry for a number of years, but has been gaining popularity quickly after being on the hit CBC show Dragon's Den. During the development of Cheekbone Beauty, Jenn researched the current makeup landscape, as well as charities that are helping close the educational funding gap that exists between Indigenous and non-Indigenous students. After in-depth research, the Cheekbone team found the First Nations Child Family Caring Society, and the connection between their mission and Jenn's family was serendipitous. Cheekbone Beauty continues to support the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society by donating 10% of the proceeds to Shannon Stream. During Cheekbone's infancy, Jenn endured a heavy personal loss with the suicide of her brother BJ, and through this loss, though difficult, has remained a driving force behind the desire to see Cheekbone Beauty succeed with its mission to empower Indigenous youth. In addition to Cheekbone's mission, Jenn strives to educate as many people possible about the residential school system and the effects it has had on family and friends through generations of generational trauma. Jenn speaks regularly at university, college, and high school students, or two, about social entrepreneurship, empathy, and the history of her First Nations family. She has also been invited to speak at various entrepreneur groups, women in business associations, Apple Canada, and First Nations organizations. In 2019, Jenn was named Woman of the Year by Chatelaine Magazine and was recently featured in Elle Canada about being the leader in zero waste innovation. All that being said, it is such an honor to welcome our guest speaker, whom we had the opportunity to connect with through our partnership with Canada. What resulted from that initial meeting has been a connection that has transcended borders between Indigenous, Native, and First Nation women and sisters. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Indigenous innovator and socially conscious beauty matriarch, Jenn Harper. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is, I feel so special when I hear that intro. I know I helped and write it. And it always is so weird when people ask you to write those things, because I find that we're raised to be humble as women. And when we do accomplish good things, sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for that. So it's a lesson I am trying to learn, but I am honored to be here with everyone this evening. And it is a privilege to have been asked to speak to you and to share, the little bit of knowledge that I do have. I'm really here to be in service and to hopefully have you leave with a little gem or nugget of something that if you're working on your business, if you're struggling right now because of the current situation, going forward, how can you propel yourself to be successful, and how can your business continue to be successful? And that all starts with knowing why our businesses exist. So I'm going to get right into my presentation. And seeing all these comments in the chat, I'm like, it's very emotional. It's so nice to see so many names that I know, incredible entrepreneurs out there doing their thing, and seeing new faces and meeting new people. It's really inspiring. All right, so discovering your purpose, or our purpose, because I feel like we're doing this together and it's still part of a big part of what I'm trying to do as an entrepreneur, and knowing your why and how that can lead you to the best life and business possible. So the images appear on the screen here, and this eagle, and any eagle, they can stay aloft for hours using thermals or columns of warm rising air. Once the thermal is found, the eagle circles within it, which carries the eagle higher and higher. When the eagle attains a certain height, it glides to the next thermal, and this process is repeated. So this lone eagle soaring effortlessly for long periods of time with what appears to be no assistance, no help, but we know better. We know about those thermals. And for some of us here in this group, we have seen our Canadian geese when we look towards the sky, and they are flying just like this image in their V formation. And during this flight, you can see how some of the birds carefully position their wingtips, and they do that to catch the preceding bird's updraft. And doing this saves them flight time, and they can actually double how far they fly when they do this together. So in our lives as humans, there are times when we have what appears to be this natural ability to soar like the eagle, but in reality, there is more at work than appears to the naked eye, like those thermals. There are other times when we need to rely on the support of others to carry us along, as in the case with the geese. And in helping others, a certain characteristic can be very useful in understanding those that we are trying to help. One particular characteristic is empathy. Empathy is the innate quality that humans have, like the eagle's ability to soar, but there is some work or practice involved to become a truly empathetic person, much like the work of the geese. Empathy has been described as having the ability to put oneself in another person's situation and truly understand what that person is feeling. Being able to feel what they feel. It's a beautiful quality that is commonly known as walking in another person's shoes. And one of the most powerful ways that we can all cultivate empathy involves using our imagination. So we may never have experienced what another person has, but we can ask ourselves some questions, like if I was in their situation, what would I need? Or how would I feel? Using our imagination to answer these questions will help us be more empathetic, and really every aspect of our lives will benefit when we become more empathetic people. So just to describe to you and give you an experience that, or a story that really tells and shares how important empathy is, or what it is, and to get a deeper understanding on that, comes from a book I read. And the gentleman begins the story like this. So he's on a subway, he's in New York City, and it's a Sunday morning. So New York City's always very busy, but on a Sunday morning, he's on the train, it's quiet. This man gets on the train with his 3 children who are being very, very rowdy. So the man ignores these kids for some times, but he just couldn't understand why the kid's father wouldn't say or do anything. So as a little time went on, it got worse, and the man decided he needed to say something. So he approaches the father and says, "Sir, please, your children." And the father lifts his head as if he had been in a deep sleep and realizes what's going on. The father responds to the man by saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We just left the hospital where their mother has passed away." It was in that moment that the man learned something that would change the way he looked at situations forever moving forward. That man on the train, his name is Dr. Stephen Covey. And if some of you might have heard of him, or at the very least, his book, which I highly recommend, is called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in the book, Dr. Covey describes this concept of a paradigm shift. It helps the reader understand that different perspectives exist. And in order for this shift to happen, we have to change our approach fundamentally, or the way we view underlying circumstances. So this situation on the subway with the father and those 3 children resulted in a huge shift for the Dr. Covey's paradigm. So this brings me to the reason why I am here and speaking with you all this evening. My people, Native people, Indigenous people, First Nations people, if we could understand each other and our communities using empathy, how much would we all benefit? Part of creating or building anything requires new perspectives and deeper understanding. The more we do work on ourselves, the better our businesses will be, the better our families will be, and the better our communities will operate. We all know, though, that this may be a challenge for some of us. The impacts of colonization have affected us for generations and still affect our families to this day. Look, the road to healing for Native people has been a long and sordid story of pain, and this reparative process cannot happen overnight. And just to give you a sense of what people need to overcome, I'm going to tell you a story about a woman that I recently came to know and love. This woman is 40 years old. She's married with a couple of children. She's an Ojibwe woman, and she works full time. And if you would have met her 10 years ago, you would think she could have everything she would want. She owns a house. She drove a nice car. She had a great family, friends, and a good job. The problem was her past. It was her family's past. She had the pain, and had this pain so deep, and had no idea that it was likely due to the suffering that her family had experienced. You see, she had a grandmother who was a residential or boarding school survivor, which basically means she didn't make it out of the school. She made it out of the school. She didn't die, but she survived that situation. But she did leave that system with scars, numerous scars, both physical and mental. Her grandmother was taken from her family without consent. She was put in a school system and abused repeatedly. And if she tried to speak Anishinaabemowin, she would be physically punished for doing so. This all started for her grandmother when she was only 6 years old, and lasted until she was 10 years old, when she was, for 10 years, and lasted until she was 16, and when she was finally able to leave the system. This woman's grandmother went on to have 8 children. And with her children, she lived in northern Ontario in a very small house with no electricity and no running water. And while the setting was on a lake and was very beautiful in an area that was untouched by the hustle and bustle of the big city, the grandmother's past and scars ran very deep. This woman's grandparents abused alcohol to mask the pain from their childhoods, and her grandmother was raised without a sense of what it meant to be a loving parent. Because she was taken from her family at such a young age, she was never taught or learned how to love, or even what love meant. And even after that, as a young adult, there was no therapy to reteach her. But she went on to have 8 children, including this woman's father. This woman's father was the second oldest of the children, and as such was required to help with his younger siblings and pick up the pieces when his parents would disappear. There were many times when the father would be caring for his younger siblings for long, long periods of time. So this woman's father, the woman that I know, finally left that reserve, and he tried going to college. He tried living in the big city, and there is where he met a woman and had a child. And that child is the woman that I know. So this woman's father didn't want to be in the big city anymore. He didn't want to be away from nature. He wanted to be close to home and close to people like him. And he too was unhappy. And after watching his parents turn to alcohol, he too did the same thing. And as such, he ended up leaving his child and her mother, and he had a sporadic relationship with this daughter, and had other children along the way with other women, and he ended up abandoning them all as well. His children were now experiencing the same things the grandmother, the residential survivor, experienced. His children were lacking love, they lacked direction, and they lacked a parent. So this woman left her father and lived with her mother and grew up with no connection to her native roots. She was encouraged to explore it many times, but she struggled with an identity issue. She would lie and not even tell people she was Ojibwe. She heard all the jokes, all the stereotypes, and she was embarrassed. She was embarrassed about the history of her family and her father's current battle with alcohol. So when she was in her teens, with her pain and lack of self-identity, and without any professional or spiritual help, it was all too much. She too turned to alcohol. The alcohol suppressed her feelings of worthlessness and of being abandoned by her father, and it helped her deal with her loneliness. She was raised by her single mother and learned to drink her pain away. She put herself in many vulnerable situations, always involving alcohol. She was raped in her teens and again in her 20s, and she continued to drink. She got married in her 20s, and into her 30s, she continued to drink. Her marriage was rocky at times, and she continued to drink. It caused problems for her, and due to a domestic altercation that got completely out of control, the police became involved. And she sat in the courtroom the next day with her husband and heard a judge tell her that alcohol was clearly the problem. That was in 2009, and then in 2010, she took it upon herself to seek help. She admitted that alcohol was a problem, and to say a problem is a huge understatement. So this woman I know entered a treatment program. She had a few relapses along the way, and then with one last episode that could have had drastic consequences, she finally quit for good. And I'm happy to say that I have been sober since November 26, 2014. And as if you've probably guessed it by now, I'm speaking about me. But that woman no longer exists. I have overcome alcoholism and feel great about who I am. I needed to quit, and I needed that narrative, that story about me and about my people. That narrative had to change. So after getting sober, I realized that I wanted to be a part of the solution and alter the course for my family, friends, and communities. And I believe, as it has been said many times, what didn't kill me only made me stronger. So I spoke about my father's, the relationship between me and my father and the abandonment that I felt. I blamed him, not his past, for our relationship. So I finally reached out to him and began the rebuilding and healing process. And over the past 10 years, I've been able to rebuild the relationships with all of my siblings and reconnect with them as well. So it was May in 2016, and I decided I needed to see my father for the first time in 20 years. So I flew to Winnipeg and then drove another 4 hours to our family's reservation. And I visited with him and my brothers, BJ and Eli. And my father is sober now, and so is my brother, BJ. He had to quit drinking as well. My brother, BJ, and I are the closest in age because his children and my children are very close. And he and his wife have visited our family many times here in the Niagara region. So going back to the reservation after 20 years and hearing and seeing all this was difficult, but it made sense. because I learned the truth about my past and I now understood. I left after visiting my father and my brothers, and I left feeling good. And I spent most of the time with my brother BJ and learned even more about our family's history. So in September of 2016, my father called with bad news. My brother BJ, at the age of 32, took his own life. It is that narrative that I spoke about changing earlier, that passing on of pain and trauma from one generation to another. It actually has a name. It's generational or transgenerational trauma. And learning about transgenerational trauma helped me understand my pain and my past and my situations. Transgenerational happens when one generation, my grandparents, are traumatized by an event or events that they are not equipped to deal with, the residential school system. And to deal with it, they turn to substance abuse or suicide. Then this trauma is passed on to the next generation, my father, and then was ultimately passed on to me and my siblings. I now realize that I am too the result of a residential school system. And the problem is that this is not unique to my family. It is affecting entire nations of Native people and creating epidemics for our youth. So for me to survive, I've sought out therapy and continue a daily routine of spiritual healing. I am still here. They did not kill the Indian in me. I'm here to tell the story about my family and how we can create a brighter future together. I want to soar like that eagle, and I want it to be effortless, but I know to get there, like the geese, I'm going to need help and the help of others, and you are all those others. So if you know my story or other stories, you may be able to empathize with other people, and you can be a part of that V formation, and together we can fly twice as far. Our stories are not always easy to share and can be very painful. It took many years to understand the power of finding my purpose. And today I have a purpose: to be a good mother, a wife, a support to my community to the best of my ability. The brand I created, Cheekbone Beauty, also has a purpose. We help Indigenous youth see their enormous value in this world. And before we make any business decisions, we ask ourselves, how will this project or this thing that we're doing empower our youth? Our goal for right now today, or my goal with you, is to help you all get started on finding your purpose. Together, we can help you set clearly defined goals to help your business thrive, even through a crisis like COVID. So we're going to talk about 4 things. And if you have a pen or paper right now, maybe this is a good time to jot some information down. The first thing is a question that we can ask ourselves. What makes you, me, or any of us come alive? So what makes you come alive? How have you stopped to think about that? What inspires you? The Latin word for inspire means to breathe life into. What does that for you? So connecting with a cause that's bigger than you are and is in harmony with what you care about. So what makes you come alive? That's number 1. Number 2, what are your innate strengths? Like, what are you really good at? I call this the intersection of magic, joy, and everything great. So if you can picture this, I didn't have a slide for it. So it's like 3 circles. The first circle, passion. The circle beside that, natural talent. And below that, the circle of skill. And that little nugget where they all intersect, that's you and where you come alive, and that's your innate strengths. So 2, what are your innate strengths? 3, where do you add the greatest value? So what problems do you enjoy solving? What do you value your strengths and skills? So those things that are naturally occurring skills that you have or have paid for through education or have over time you've just gotten better at. So what are those things that makes you bring value to something? So where do you add the greatest value? That was number 3. And number 4, which to me is the most important, but that's aside. How will you measure your life? At the end of all of this, when it is all said and done, what will you want people to say about you? right? So no matter what your job is, you will find joy in it. This portion or this section or this question is all about your attitude. What do you want to be, and what do you want to be remembered for? And those things that you usually want to be and remembered for, they align with your beliefs. So I spent the first half of my career in the hospitality industry. One of my first jobs was as a dishwasher. And the chefs would say, "Jenn, why are you scrubbing those pots so hard?" I take, or always do, and take pride in all my work, in anything I do. I wanted to be the best dishwasher that ever existed. So that this relates back to that number 4 question that we just discussed about attitude and how we will measure things at the end of our life. Um, I knew scrubbing pots wasn't making me come alive, but I still really, really wanted to be really good at it and do the best job I could at that time. My career then led me to the role um, as a hotel and restaurant manager in boutique style hotels, where we provided customers with the most incredible experiences. And I discovered in that job, or that portion of my career, how much I loved making people or customers happy. On one occasion, I literally remember a customer calling in and asking about a business that was on the same street that we were. Um, and he could not remember the name of it, but he knew what they sold. Asked him if he had a couple minutes, if he would wait on the line, and he said sure. And then I put him on hold, and I couldn't find the number or the name of the store that he was looking for. So I literally got up and ran down the street, got the name of the store and the phone number, came back, got on the phone, told him what it was, and clearly panting because I had just run. And he said, "Did you just run down the street?" And I said, "Yes, of course I did." And the point is, he called the hotel owners, and they were like thrilled and left a raving review. But I discovered in that portion of my career that made me come alive. That made me feel amazing when I was helping customers feel great about their day and about themselves. And it was just offering those incredible experiences. So that relates, going back to the number 1, what makes you come alive. In that portion of my career, I think I discovered that that's what made me come alive. Then, when I discovered sales after my son was born, I was hooked. Helping businesses find solutions, yes, please, that was for me. This was a skill that I had to foster, though. And I was educated in this area, and I did have this innate ability to understand my customers' needs before they did. And I loved helping them market their businesses. So this became my strength, or my superpower, if you will. And that relates back to number 3, where do you add the greatest value? So in 2015, after getting sober, I had that life-changing dream. And if many of you have heard my story, you know that night it's 2 a.m. I pop out of bed and I grab my laptop. This is literally it. It's very old and heavy. It actually just died. So I'm really sad about that, but I'm going to keep it. And started writing the first draft of what is now, that ever living Cheekbone Beauty business plan. But that was that night. And I would tell people that this brand is going to change the world. I would tell my family and friends that. And I was very serious, and I still am. Cheekbone Beauty is creating a whole new category in the beauty industry called socially conscious beauty, a brand that leaves less of an impact on the planet while leaving a huge impact on Indigenous lives. That doesn't exist in the beauty world yet. We're the first ones to do that, and we're really proud. So when I think about going back to number 1, what makes you come alive? Talk about what makes you come alive and how you want your life to be measured. I had finally found my purpose. I can tell you, I have never experienced more joy and happiness at work. I can't believe I get to wake up every single day and do this job. The DMs, the emails, the smiling faces of our youth when I meet them and talk to them, the incredible Indigenous women entrepreneurs that I am surrounded by all the time, the students that are coming up from Harvard, Yale, every university across Canada. Our Native kids are about to rock and shock this world. Of course, they need a beauty brand a sustainable beauty brand that represents their beautiful faces. Native people are innovative, talented, and dedicated. Those generations upon generations, or hours and hours of becoming, have arrived. So, what's next? Well, how passion and resilience are the secrets to your and my success. So, what do you need to do right now? I, Jenn Harper, have the privilege to belong to a very small group of women, Indigenous women, whose businesses have been funded by outside money, meaning venture capital, seed money, investors. This group consists of less than 1% of the population. When I think about that, sometimes I literally say, holy cow, because that means our women basically do not get invested in. But we are all about to change that. When you know your why, when you know why you do what you do, people will invest in you. When you believe in your business, people will believe in your business and believe in you. But you need to be able to clearly identify your purpose, and that takes time and effort. Start by answering those 4 questions that we just discussed. That took me 4 years to distinctly state and understand. So start today and get ready to watch the magic happen. And this is what you need to do every single day. Practice, deliberately practice. Routines help us do hard things. Purpose, the intention to contribute to the well-being of others. You need to find that part of the purpose in your business. The pain of my brother's death is a constant companion, and wanting every kid to see their worth drives me every single day. Hope is the expectation that tomorrow will be better, but we need to reframe that as hope is I resolve to make tomorrow better. So make practice, purpose, and hope a habit. Add time into your day to think deeply about how you will deliberately practice, like have a real plan, a map, draw it out, and then circle back to your purpose every single day and understand what drives you, and hope harder and never, ever, ever give up. I look forward from here, and I hope, meaning I resolve to make this happen, to see an epilogue to this story. I hope to look back and see how far we have come as a society in addressing these issues that caused my brother's suicide. In my mind's eye, I see a smile on my brother's face, seeing his children grown up with help, with better education, with better health care, with better support so they can break that vicious cycle of generational trauma. There is no tragedy that cannot be overcome with the right support of a loving community. Trust me, I know, I've been there. Before my brother died, I spent 3 solid days with him on 2 separate occasions. One with him in October, and the next was in May. We spoke from sun up to sundown. He gave me context about our people's challenges and what he thought they needed. I told him about my plans to start and create Cheekbone Beauty, and he told me about what he thought about the business and its purpose. Cheekbone Beauty was created to manufacture and sell sustainable cosmetics that support programs aimed at educating and empowering Native youth. While sitting with my brother BJ in Whitefish Bay of that May, outside around that picturesque, beautiful backdrop of Lake of the Woods, we were smothered in the boreal forest. I'm asking his advice. And I asked him what he thought about the goals and my message and what others would be saying. And he even gave me some ideas about products. I wanted to be sure that none of the ingredients we would never use would disrespect the traditions of our people, and his input and knowledge were very important to me. He encouraged me throughout our discussion, and I told him that I had a goal, and the goal was to start this company. I'd already worked on it for thousands of hours, but after leaving my brother BJ that day, I was determined, and I knew I had to complete what I started. So after 5 more months and endless hours of work, Cheekbone Beauty went live as an online cosmetics company on November 26, 2016. The First Nation Child and Family Caring Society is the first charity we have chosen to work with, and we have donated 10% of all of our profits to date since, and then to date, Cheekbone Beauty has donated over $25,000 in donations and products to organizations that support and empower Native youth and help to sustain all of our communities. My brother BJ was an extremely caring man with an unbelievable sense of humor. He had a passion for music and sports. So when my father called me at 11 p.m. on Tuesday, September 20th, 2016, I knew right away something was wrong. May would have been the last time that I saw him alive, and he said something to me about Cheekbone. He said, "Jen, our people need hope, especially our children, and what you are doing is going to be great." I hope he was right. Miigwech.
Yeah, Jen, for sharing your heart with us today. We are so incredible. I am so incredibly touched by your generosity, by your vision, and just your spirit. And we at Native Women Leader are incredibly grateful to get to work with you on creating this space, um, and just to share a little bit with folks in the chat. Like every conversation that we've had with Jen, she leads with her heart. And the first conversation, Jamie and I were in tears at just the way that she has shaped her company. And for those of us that are on social media and follow her company, like we see it, we see the way that it's embraced by our Indigenous relatives, and it's just phenomenal. So again, Savo, Jen, for joining us today and for sharing your journey and the story of your brother. It will continue to inspire me going forward too. So yeah,
Thank you.
I think right now what I would like us to encourage us to do, and we'll be led by Jen Lujan in just a moment to as we shift from like the intake and the breathing in of Jen's story and offering to our Q&A session and like our time for community. We wanted to like make room for just acknowledgement of like our vessels and our bodies in this time. Like it's very unnatural to be in front of our glass and computer screens, and I'm sure many of you have been in front of them for many hours this day. And so let's hand it over to Jen Lujan to lead us in a bit of a movement break.
Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
You look shining and beautiful.
Stop. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a quick stretch break. Please feel free to stay tuned to take part. So with that, we're just going to do a couple of office stretches while y'all are spending hours and hours on end in front of Zoom. So just go ahead, stay seated where you're at right now. So what we're going to start with is a shoulder stretch. So we're just going to bring one hand under your elbow and lift your elbow and stretch across your chest. Do not rotate your body like this as you stretch. We're just really trying to concentrate on the arm rather than the back, or to hold any awkward positions. So relax and start returning to the starting position, and repeat and stretch with the other arm. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and do an upper arm stretch. So lift one arm and bend it behind your head. Place your other arm or your other hand on the bent elbow to help stretch your upper arm and shoulder. And let's go ahead and hold for a couple of seconds, and then we'll go ahead and switch with the other arm. Let's go ahead and release and switch arms. All right. Now let's go ahead and do a chest stretch. So kind of what I was just doing. Place your hands behind your head and squeeze your shoulder blades together in your back, bringing your elbows back as far as possible. And stretch all those muscles in your chest. Now let's go ahead and do a chin tuck. We're just going to face straight ahead and then lower your chin to your chest. And you'll feel like this tension in the back of your neck. You don't want to overstretch, just do it where it's comfortable, because you don't want to pull the muscles in your neck, because that would be no good. And for a deeper stretch, you can pull your head down. All right, now let's go ahead and do a head turn. So let's turn your head to one side, keeping your shoulders straight. So just look over your shoulder as far as you can. Again, don't stress or strain yourself. And let's go ahead and switch sides. And maybe a full circle, couple of circles. All right, let's go ahead and go back to starting position. And then just some side neck stretches, just one ear towards the same shoulder. And put your right arm straight down, or the opposite arm straight down, to increase that stretch in your neck right here. Let's go ahead and switch. All right, and we can go ahead and do a lower back stretches while sitting here on your chair. So I'm just going to turn my chair to the side to kind of show you what I'm doing. But if you want to go ahead and like pick up one knee at a time and just kind of curl into it, just to kind of stretch out like this part, the part that's doing all the work. And to round it out, let's go ahead and stand. And let's go ahead and stretch out our legs. Get the blood flowing back into our toes. All right, and a couple of cleansing breaths. I would suggest maybe like 3, just to kind of process everything that we've shared so far. And we'll be meeting up in a few minutes to go ahead and start the Q&A.
So here's a poll. We would love for you to drop in how you identify what level of business you're in.
Jenn Harper, I just wanted to say thanks again for sharing your story. I didn't know all of that, so it was just really insightful, and just so honored for you to be here and share that with us, and appreciate you and your leadership and your vulnerability in this moment. It's definitely so meaningful, not only for me, but I think a lot of us.
Thanks. Thank you. I only learned, just starting to learn how important vulnerability is, and sharing in the right spaces and with the right people. And it's like there's so many layers of it is involved, right? But it's healing. That's for sure. It's part of the healing is when it's sharing it, right? Yeah. And a big part of, I think, my why when we talk about that is our youth. I want them to show them that it's okay to be vulnerable, and that it's okay to have made mistakes, have problems, but we can grow and learn from that. And there is no obstacle that we cannot overcome.
So we're gonna go ahead and get started, if that sounds good. And I think that for folks that are watching the recording of this, know that we are not recording the Q&A. So we encourage you to follow Native Women Lead at Native Women Lead on all of the socials. We'll also be posting upcoming speakers and chats that we have planned with panelists. So we encourage you to visit our social media channels to be able to connect with that. Many people that have come to our event or go to any conference, there's always like a swag bag. And considering the times that we're in right now, co-founders came up with, hey babe, my office door is open, so the baby's inside. We are going to have care packages, and I'm going to hand it over to co-founder Alicia Ortega to share about what those are.
Cool. Thanks, Jacqueline. And I'm so excited. I'm super excited. First of all, I'm speechless about Jenn. I'm just appreciate your real raw honesty and your story. Just you're amazing, and you're my new hero. I thank you so much for joining us today. And with that, you'll all be really happy to hear that in the care packages, we will be featuring some of Jenn's lipsticks. They come in 3 different awesome shades. We also are super excited at the fact that we've been able to help support and stimulate business for 6 Native and women-owned businesses here in New Mexico, which include Nijoni Soaps, which is a really cool company by a very young entrepreneur, 11 years old, Camilla Begay out of Shiprock, New Mexico. Handmade all these really cool soaps. They're wrapped in corn husk. And we have Aura Luis Boutique, who is a company owned by Hillary Frost. She's Southern Ute tribe, and she's based here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And she hand makes all these really cool soaps. We also have these really cool little sachet bags that were put together by Dancing Butterfly Naturals, whose owner is Addie Lucero from Taos Pueblo. Has some really cool little goodies. This is a lavender lush lotion, a lip balm, which is summer peach lip balm, and a little mini sage stick, as well as a heart-shaped bar soap. Kuwatson made by Ariana Johnny Wadsworth. She is based here in Albuquerque, and she makes this really cool lotion. Awesome pump. It's a Devil's Club lotion with comfy and nettle chamomile. Smells amazing. Top Lily Herbals, who I haven't quite gotten that shipment yet. It's due here any day. But it is a budding entrepreneur. Her name is Taylor Rose from Santa Clara Pueblo. She's working her way through college at ASU and has a really cool business where she is making some oatmeal hemp soaps, which will also be included. So that's just some of the products that will be mixed and matched in the care packages. And we're just super excited to be able to share those with you and to be able to stimulate and promote these 6 businesses. And just as a thank you from us to you for taking time for yourselves and for us, and to just join us today and lifting each other up and really just cheering each other on through these times.
So in the chat, share what your takeaways are, and we will be sending you a care package.
Awesome. I don't know if Jenn Harper shared this, but could you tell just a little bit about your Sustain line? And like, I know you shared a little bit about the name.
So we started the brand using what is considered like a third-party manufacturer. So that meant we had no control over the raw ingredients or formulations or exterior package design. my experience coming from the food industry taught me that the beauty and food industry were very, very similar. That there's lots of manufacturers for makeup, much like lots for food, and everything is just packaged or branded differently, even though it could be the same goods inside. So when I discovered that truth about beauty, I thought, okay, in order to test the market, this would be a great way to start and to see if anyone really cared, if the brand we were trying to create had some legs and had people that would actually want to purchase the products. So that was our starting point. So originally, we always knew we wanted to make the products way more sustainable, way more green, way more clean, way more eco friendly. Just do everything that we could to make the product, meaning the raw ingredients themselves, the best and better, as well as the packaging. So that idea started ultimately in 2018, but we got to real work on it in 2019. And then when we got some funding, because it was really, like, in all honesty, was the expensive part, was hiring the cosmetic scientists that we work with, working with sustainability experts, and third party like assessment organizations that will help you and legitimately tell you how sustainable your product, your business really is. And then all of those things in coming together over the last 2019 was the hard part. And then what is really interesting about beauty is what I've learned along the way is once you make a new product or a new mixing new raw ingredients together and making stuff, especially when you're trying to use raw ingredients that are more, I'm going to use the word natural loosely because I get this asked all the time. Are your products natural or, it's kind of like misinformation or, it's faulty in terms of what marketers use in calling beauty natural because there is technically no such thing as natural beauty. Anything, even in nature, is chemistry and considered a chemical. The closest thing I always say you would have to natural beauty would be like taking the aloe plant and rubbing that on your face. But once something hits a lab, it then becomes part of a chemistry composition, and that becomes a product, and it's not natural anymore. But anyway, that's that's my 5 seconds on that, and a pet peeve. But it's about education. We've all been marketed these blanket terms, and do we really know what they mean? So that was the journey we had stepped into, which has been a whirlwind because much like I'm learning an entire new realm of things. I am not a scientist. I do not have a science background, but spending the last 2 years with my head deep down in science-based, like looking at clinical studies and data related to raw ingredients and having conversations with the scientists that we work with has really hurt my head a lot. But the whole purpose of all of that work was we wanted just to make better products using the best possible ingredients, sustainable meaning that when the product and the packaging, so we call this life cycle assessment, when those things hit our ecosystems or our waterways, what will the impact be? And if something is more sustainable, the impacts on our environment are less. So if we think about at the end of the day, I'm going to go wash everything off my face, all of these raw ingredients are going to go down the drain. And now, is that going to affect the system? Or when our paper packaging goes in a compost, how is that going to affect the land? So using and really diving deeply into, I guess, all of these levels of what sustainability really meant was part of it. And this is a really long answer to that question, but lo and behold, we came out with a product on March 27th. And this is called our new Sustain lipstick collection. It is the first of many products in this new sustainable line that we are building. We're in the middle right now. COVID has put a complete halt on it, but we're creating a foundation stick that is using plant waste or agricultural waste as the main ingredient, which is really, really cool because we're actually then pulling ingredients from landfill, and repurposing them into an amazing product that is we've had the samples, and it's in stability right now, so we've been testing it. So I actually love the product, cannot wait for this to come out. But that's the direction of our brand. So we started on March with these 3 lipsticks, these 3 shades. We can't even make new colors right now, which we really wanted to have by May. More colors added to the collection, but we can't because our labs are all closed. But anyway, that's the new project we're working on. It was part of the original vision, but it was about, it goes back to everything, like showing our kids, our youth, like, I am not a scientist. I know nothing about these things, but I'm figuring it out as I went along. And it's this process that it takes just time and hard work, and you can figure it out. Like everything, literally, I've learned. I used to think that everything was like a big secret and only these special people had the answers, or people that went to business schools and had all these big fancy letters behind their name knew all the answers. Well, they don't. The information is out there for all of us to understand and figure out, and that it's possible for all of us to do that and make and create whatever businesses we want.